Okay, Loren, so it's been quite a journey here over the last month and a half. About a month and a half ago, we discovered that you had an aneurysm. We're actually looking for an answer to some of your symptoms, and uh, we saw that as a blessing that we finally got an answer. Didn't have much time to really say, think about it. We did research, we made the right decision, and about a month ago, you had your aneurysm procedure with Dr. Patel after discovering this wonderful group of doctors at Mount Sinai. And it was the right decision.
Definitely.
And so since then, you've been around the world. Uh, Ended up in London doing a little bit of business,
Back to work.
but had a great vacation, if you want to call it that, with
Recovery.
your recovery session around the world with Amber and Dwayne and
Yeah.
Carmelo and
I know.
Lala. And it was a wonderful trip, and it did give you a chance to reboot your brain a little bit.
Yeah, and catch up on about 10 years of missed sleep.
So, in retrospect, what do you have to say about this, and what are you experiencing, and what is happening that you expected or didn't expect?
I think the most interesting thing is, now it's 4 weeks. I'm 4 full weeks into my finishing my surgery. So recovery, of course, when you first come out of surviving brain surgery, you feel pretty good anyway. That's a pretty remarkable experience to go through. So just surviving it is remarkable. And I think, one of the things that's really interesting about what I've been through is the recovery, and I've come across so many people who have either had brain aneurysms or have discovered that they have brain aneurysms. And those who just discovered ask, well, what can I expect from the surgery? So the interesting thing is, number one, I'm alive, and that's the most important thing. But, with any surgery, you have some recovery. With brain surgery, you deal with other small things, much smaller than what the outcome would be if you didn't do it, in my opinion. For me, obviously your energy level is not nearly the same as it was initially, but that comes back, and each day, every day gets better. I'm more tired than I've ever been, so taking naps for me, which is something that's highly unusual, has become part of my daily routine, and that's okay. It actually helps get the brain properly functioning again, kind of creating homeostasis, if you would, starting everything back over again. I guess the biggest challenges have been, two important things. One is short-term memory, so I've relied on a lot of sticky notes to remind me of things that I might forget. Although I might not remember if I took a pill 5 minutes before, that couldn't happen to anybody with or without brain surgery. So my short-term memory I'm still working on, but it's part of the procedure and the after effects, but it does get better. And I guess the biggest thing is, of course, is I'm a huge multitasker. Anybody who's a super achiever knows that, multitasking is critical, and women do it very, very well. So right now I'm not able to multitask like I used to. I can tackle things one at a time, and I can still do them very effectively, but I'm not able to do 3 or 4 things at once and listen to 2 people at the same time like I did before, but hopefully that'll change soon again. It was probably good to take tasking so much. But other than those 2 things, the recovery has been amazing and actually remarkable. My doctor says I'm the poster child for brain surgery, if there could be one, because I do have so much energy still, more energy than I guess most people do normally. So I'm very grateful. The small after effects and the recovery process is, far easier than to deal with what the consequences would have been had I not done the surgery. And I think that's one of the things that Jared and I are doing so effectively is trying to create awareness. We talk about our health and doing screenings for things like breast cancer. It's just normal for us to do natural screenings to ensure as women we don't have, problems with breast cancer, but we don't talk about brain health. And we don't talk about screenings for things like aneurysms because people don't think about them. And truthfully, it's women my age, I call it in between age, 37 to 44, where, somebody can be affected by a brain aneurysm. And their life factors have a greater risk because of their age. And so, there's, of course, other factors, people who smoke, high blood pressure, drug abuse. Those things weren't issues for me, but my age alone and the size of the aneurysm that I dealt with at 8.5 millimeters was still an issue, and two life factors that were against me if I didn't do the surgery. So, as we know, I chose to do the surgery. It was incredibly successful with Dr. Patel. And so now our mission is more to educate. We're not creating a charity to raise money, but we are creating awareness and educational campaign. And are going to be spreading the word as much as possible to kind of create a screening so women and men both can know the signs, number one, to look for, and what they can do to make sure that they're not affected by this potentially life-threatening disease like brain aneurysm. I think more than just doing the surgery to, worry about if your aneurysm will rupture or not rupture is not really the question. I mean, obviously, that's a huge issue, a huge factor. But more importantly, who wants to live with knowing if you have the worst headache of your life or you're having a horrible, what appears to be a migraine, is that a real headache or is that your aneurysm rupturing or hemorrhaging? Living with not knowing if, today's your last day or, the last day you'll be able to see your family, or not knowing what will happen when you wake up tomorrow and you bend to put a towel over your head coming out of the shower. Those are the type of things I personally didn't want to live with. And, people say, you hear somebody say that, oh, so-and-so has died of a brain aneurysm. No, really what's happened is they've died of a ruptured brain aneurysm. And there are many people who are walking around today with brain aneurysms who don't even know it. I was one of them. I would have never thought in a million years that I was somebody with a brain aneurysm. I mean, not me, but it was me. And I'm a survivor of it. And I believe that there's so many people out there who have probably experienced symptoms like I did, like vertigo for many, many years. Headaches, dizziness. My vision was blurred. One of the things that's greatly improved since my brain aneurysm surgery is my vision in my left eye is so much better than it ever was. In fact, my vision is back to normal. It's been years since it's been like that. So I can see better, and I can actually function in my brain better, even though it's taken me a little bit of time to recover. And I can definitely feel a difference. So there are things that people suffer with, and then, because they can't find the answer to why they're being, having dizziness or why they're having vertigo, they just kind of live with it. And I talked about that, sometime when I discovered I had a brain aneurysm, that I was living with a lot of vertigo. And now when I go back and I think about it in retrospect, the fact that I did and accepted it for being okay was not right. You should never accept those type of things because having vertigo is not normal. And don't let anybody tell you it is. And being persistent and knowing your own body, knowing how you feel. Sometimes you have to take an absolute position with your doctors and say, you know what, I don't feel myself. Remember, they are practicing physicians. I happen to get fortunate enough to find the right doctors who gave me a plan. And I think when you find out that you have a brain aneurysm, or at least for me, the biggest thing is establishing a plan. Like, what do I do? It kind of throws a curveball at you. So instead of, kind of sulking and trying to figure out what do I do, you need to make a game plan. And for me, I needed a game plan, and I wanted my family to be on the same plan as me. I wanted us all to be in agreement that we knew what I was dealing with, we knew what the surgery would be like, and we knew what the recovery would be like.
Then there's a lot of variables involved. It's not one size fits all. There's a plan has to be customized for the person, the situation, the nature of the aneurysm. And we were very fortunate to get a group and Dr. Patel that really, really drills down and maps out a good game plan.
And I agree. I think it really comes down to that because you have to really work with somebody who's an expert on it. And, the particular procedure I had, which was the coiling and putting a stent in my brain, a 20 millimeter stent in my brain, as well as 6 coils, it takes a real expert to do that. Not everybody can do that type of surgery. So you have to go to a physician who really knows what he's doing. And I'm sure there's so many of them out there. For me, it was, Dr. Patel and his amazing team over at Mount Sinai in New York City. But, you're dealing with professionals, and for them it wasn't just another procedure, but I was really a patient, a person, and so they really cared about the whole process, and before, the during, and the after. And that's the type of health care that people deserve. The before, the during, and after are just as important as the during.
Well, one of the problems with these aneurysms is that they can mimic a lot of other things.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, even doctors don't recognize that this could be an aneurysm. They think it's something else and pass it off. And so I think one of the significant things that you and Dr. Patel have agreed to do is to try to create an awareness program so people know and doctors know when they need to be screened and what the proper screening methods are.
Yeah.
A lot of people think you just go get an MRI, but that doesn't necessarily
That doesn't show
pick it
it,
up.
right. And so that really, an MRI doesn't show it. In fact, what does show it is an MRA, and that's what I had. Of course, I didn't know what an MRA was at the time. I've said that before, but I'll say it again. And really, it's an imaging test that lights up the arteries, and in this case, my brain. And so that image of the brain through an MRA is what identified that brain aneurysm in my internal brainstem. Which was 8.5 millimeters, and of course the size of the neck of your aneurysm, how wide the entry is to the aneurysm, is so important in determining how the procedure is done. And if you need a stent, my opening was a little bit, my opening to my aneurysm was a little bit bigger than ideal, so I had to put a stent in order to protect the coils from ever coming out, and I feel much better, of course, that I did. But with any additional pass, to the brain, when you're going into the brain, you want to be take as few of passes as possible. So adding a stent is always a risk. The team at Mount Sinai did an amazing job, and if you're somebody who's been affected by a family member or yourself who's dealing with discovering a brain aneurysm or symptoms of one that could be similar, you have to do the right test and demand it. Demand that you want an MRA. If you're not sure, you ask your doctor to write a prescription so your insurance can cover it, and have an MRA done. And within minutes, you'll find out if you're dealing with something like I dealt with, and it's treatable. In many cases, it's treatable. And so for me, even with an 8.5 millimeter aneurysm, which is anything over 7 is considered to be something that needs to be treated. You have options. There are many options, and for me, the option was the one I did, choosing to do endovascular brain surgery, going through my leg into the groin, past the heart, but not through the heart, and up into the brain. It's like going to the moon, like Jair says. It's pretty remarkable.
So what are some of the things you're doing to create awareness for both doctors and patients with Dr. Patel?
Well, one of the things we're doing is we're actually going on a campaign to create awareness, like we said, not charities. We don't want to raise any money, but we do want to create awareness and create a screening. So on October 2nd, we're going to be on the CBS morning show here in New York. It's called On the Couch, and we're going to be with Dr. Patel talking about the things and the signs of things that you can look for in identifying brain aneurysm, how to have good brain health, to do screenings, to look for the signs, and what to do once or if you've discovered you or a family member have been diagnosed with a brain aneurysm. It doesn't have to be a fatal incident at the end. So many times we hear about somebody who's passed away of a brain aneurysm because they didn't even know they had one. And often when we hear about somebody who had a brain aneurysm, it's often a fatal outcome. It doesn't have to be that way. I'm living proof of that. The 90% of the people who do survive a ruptured aneurysm, the few that survive a ruptured aneurysm, 90% of them are debilitated. So very few people survive them. And then when they do, 90% of them are debilitated. I both survived the brain surgery, and I'm not debilitated in any way. And I prevented it from being ruptured at any point. My aneurysm could have ruptured at any point because of the life factors involved. And because I was having symptoms, made it even greater chance that it would do so. So, you can survive. There are options for you. And we are going to do everything we can to create awareness. I'm working on my new Huffington Post article currently as we speak to get the message out to so many people who are possibly affected by this. And I really do believe that there's more people affected with having a brain aneurysm than they even know, because they just don't know. And I know you know what I mean, because most people have heard of somebody who has passed with a brain aneurysm. And just imagine if they could have found out what I found out, or identified and listened to their body, or went and discovered a treatment that could be done to prevent it from rupturing. It's very sad, and it's a really a very life-threatening disease that affects most people in the most tragic ways. And so I'm trying to create a program and a screening where we can prevent that from happening to people.
You also have the interactive platform with Nutrimetrics, with
Yeah.
thousands of doctors that are on the front line that can be educated and ask questions.
Yeah,
and patients can.
We've just created a website, nutrimetrics.com, which will give people insight, and not only into my story, but be able to hear from Dr. Patel and others, other experts, other medical doctors on brain aneurysms, brain health, as well as other amazing topics. But more importantly, how you can take the steps in order to protect yourself from suffering, or a loved one from suffering, and kind of follow my story, as well as finding out what the very best solutions and advice is in your particular case, because as JR said, not one size fits all, right? And so really that's really our mission. It's my goal, and it's in my heart to go out there and share this information with the world. It's garnished a lot of attention already. I'm continuously working on it. It's not something you forget. After you suffer from a brain aneurysm, you kind of see your funeral, for a moment. You survived brain surgery, and you kind of see your funeral, and you kind of see everything around you and all the people around you, and you just don't want this to happen again to somebody else that you know. And so if you are somebody who has suffered, or somebody who has recently found out that you have a family member, remember, it's also 70% of it is genetic. So you have to pay attention to those factors as well, and look inside your family and make sure you're protecting not only yourself but your family. And that's really it. We're just on a mission to make things better, feeling better than ever. Listen, it's an 8 to 9 week recovery just for the normal procedure, and then they say it's a year recovery before your full memory comes back into play. Those are all small things when you talk about long-term survival and having an amazing life, and never having to worry again about having something rupture in your brain where you wouldn't make it to the hospital.
Well, in week 4, you're doing great.
I'm doing amazing, and my family is really doing amazing, because we thank God every single day, and are really blessed, because the thought of the other outcome would have been horrible, not just obviously for me, but for my entire family. So I'm so glad that nobody had to go through that, and that we get to live a normal life. And it's because of Dr. Patel and everybody at Mount Sinai that they gave us the gift of time. And that's the most important thing. So it's our gift to the rest of the world to share this message and this mission with everybody, and how they can identify how they or somebody that they love or know could potentially be affected by brain aneurysm. That's it. So signing out. Love you guys. Appreciate all the love and support. Everybody's been so amazing. That's probably been the most remarkable, exciting thing about it, is all the love and support I've gotten. So I love you guys.